Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Welcome to another Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all so much for tuning in to episode 65, because yes, we are on 65 episodes, believe it or not. We've been doing this for 2 years now. 2 years. It's been an amazing ride. There you have it. I've said it already. We've got the amazing train leaving the station. We have. But in all seriousness tonight, we want to ensure that you have the best time in the world, right? Because it's been a long week, has it not? And you know, I've got something really burning on my chest.
B-E-R-N as in burn?
Burning. But no, not Bernie, but burning. Because I got a problem. You know, we were going to talk about Nazi punching. I really Wait.
No, you know, we talked about this. You're supposed to stay on track with our plan. You're not going to go off on the Tanner tangent.
Oh, what are you talking about? The Tanner tangent? I'm not going to go on a Tanner tangent.
That's a new hashtag. That's going to be a new hashtag right there. No, what we're going to do?
No,
you said we were going to do this.
No, hold on.
You said it. Yes.
I said what? What did I say?
You said this is going to be a fun show. That's the plan. We're going to have a good time.
But Dan Arlo and David Smalley got in an argument about Nazi punching. Don't you want to get involved in an argument?
It'll still be there. It will. It's not going anywhere. I guarantee you they will be talking about this plenty longer than we need to. Let's be different. Let's have a little bit of fun. We've been so damn serious lately that the political end of things and all this election stuff, everybody's so dark. I mean, it is pretty dark out there, but I wanted to do a fun one. I think we decided that this is going to be a good one. To do have a good time, laugh at each other or something. Maybe laugh at some stuff on the internet.
All right. Well, that's fair. We throw a little music in. We'll mix it up a little bit, Hannah. Is that how it is? Maybe we'll be a little bit of NPR.
We put the right record on.
I did. I did. I did it all. I did it all for the music.
So but do it for the nookie?
Not for the nookie. I didn't do it for the nookie.
What's your red hat, bro?
No offense, not with you. But in all fairness, you're right. We have had a busy couple of weeks, months, years, almost, it feels like, dealing with the orange sewer monster. So in all fairness, fine. Why don't we do some lighter topics? How about we talk about some of the best signs from the Women's March? That sounds good. I haven't got to see every one of your visuals. I saw
so many good ones.
And then, I don't know, we have our friend Mohammed. He wants to talk about a book called Mohamed by Mohammed. And it's a satirical look at the Great Prophet. So let's talk to him tonight, interview him a little bit. And then we have an amazing science segment. And I don't say this as much as I should, but we have a great science segment because what we want to do is we want to tackle if diet soda is actually going to kill you.
And that's funny right there.
Because I had to switch. I'm now drinking straight whiskey because, you know, I can't risk that diet soda. And then we're going to end the episode talking about SNL and how SNL has kind of transitioned its comedy back from the 70s and 80s and 90s, even now into the 2000s.
And what they're doing.
We're going to talk about how they're doing, what they're doing, and the transitional change between the two.
And we're going to talk about our favorite moments, because SNL's got some awesome bits. We'll talk a little bit about that, with our best jokes, favorite jokes, and favorite political stuff they've done lately.
Yeah. That's great. So, anyways, now that you threw me off my game here, Mr. Hanna, you know, changing all my topics. I mean, I had a great article written about Nazi punching, but in all fairness, it's fun to be funny. So, you wanted to talk about the best signs from the Women's March, and I agree, because I actually find the Women's March very inspirational. I was very excited to see all the attendees. I was very excited to see the multitudes and multitudes of people. And I'll be honest, I got a little bit of flack, you know, even then about all of the crazy stuff going on. And people were accusing me of, you're just joining into the movement here because you're not going to do anything, right? You're not going to do anything. This march will do nothing. Protests do nothing. But it was amazing to see this many people come together for a specific reason. And I was very, very, very excited to see even our local CFI pick up the flag and run with it. This is the first big movement the CFI has taken on this year, and I'm excited to hear about some of the upcoming possibilities. So if you live in the Grand Rapids area, and I know it's only one day away, but they have an amazing talk. They're going to talk tomorrow, January 25th, at the Women's City Club in Grand Rapids, and they're going to talk about what the CFI is going to do this year in activism. So I'm very excited to hear that talk. I know there's a lot of other people in Grand Rapids, so if you're in there, please head over to the City Club, and you can actually check out Jennifer Bean, and she's going to give a talk on where the CFI is going from here. Without further...
And they're going to do it with a smile. It's going to be, positive as opposed to a little bit of negativity and, people just bounding and pounding on all the bad things that are going on. Like, it's going to be CFI. This is what we're going to do. These are the goals. This is the stuff that we want to accomplish and the way in which we're going to make our lives better, our community better and stuff like that. So it's usually a really fun, uplifting, and important experience for a lot of people who may have been in like dark and rough environments. It's a nice place where you can go and meet people you like, people like you, like-minded, and have good conversations. So everything about the CFI is usually awesome.
Awesome. So the best part here is some of the signs. So you put like a little Google reel together, did you not? Or was that somebody else that put that together?
A friend of mine, her name is she's an online friend. Her name's Kimberly Comer. She's I saw her posting some stuff online on Facebook, and I was just like, whoa, wait a minute. Where is she at? Because she went to the march, and I said, where did you go? And she said she went to the Lansing one. And I heard about these, in most of the states throughout the union, we had some really awesome, like small grassroots communities get up, 300, 500. There were 3,000 people, I believe, in Vermont or some places like that are smaller, or Maine or Massachusetts. Either way, this is the one that happened in Michigan, and she's got all kinds of photos. And so I linked them in to a Google Drive folder, and that'll be included in our links. You can see the local end of these things. So we all saw all of, the 500,000 people in Washington, 750,000 people in LA that were there supporting the women's rights and mostly these progressive ideals. And but this was the one that happened in Michigan. I don't know. I don't have a count of how many people were there, but it was awesome. There were really funny signs, great people just jumping around, and I didn't see negativity. That's one of the things that I liked about this so much. It turned out really positive, and it's really uplifting, and it was funny. Like, these signs are great. Some of the signs that one of them, the best was like the most, I guess, sciencey sign was basically use science to develop our policy and everything like that. And so that was the sign that Kimberly made. But there were some signs from veterans that were really good. And so everything is just really great. It's no pussy grabbing, no wall, no unequal pay, no discrimination, no mass deportation. It's a big, giant guy, and he's a veteran, and he was just doing some really great things with his signs. And it's fun and uplifting. So I guess we can go through and just see which ones the you thought were the best out of that gallery, because I wouldn't really understand there was one that's keep your filthy laws off my silky drawers. And I think that has something to do with Greece. I saw a comment about that, but I'm not 100% certain. But there was one where they had a giant, I'm talking like 3 or 4 people tall, it looks like, of Dick Snyder just parading around. Looks like he's doing bring it back to the Nazi topic. Like doing a Nazi salute here. So
stay away.
I don't know, man. And then Dumbledore wouldn't let this happen. I asked some people about this. Have you heard about? I've seen all these signs about Dumbledore.
How about I'm not a big Harry Potter fan.
Yeah,
so I don't know. I mean, I've seen Harry Potter. I don't dislike Harry Potter, but I'm not on that cultish, look at it.
Yeah, I just seen those signs everywhere, and apparently people said that Dumbledore was such a good dude that he wouldn't let this kind of stuff happen. So, like, okay, that's the joke there. But, like, people were really smiling and having a great time. There's a giant sign that says, "I've made a huge mistake, America, January 20th, 2017. Mm-hmm. So, like, I mean, people are having fun with this, but base laws and science, yes, DACA, no DEVOS. So yes to the children's DACA and no to DeVos, which I'm fine with. But.
One of my favorite ones was the only minority destroying America is the rich.
Man,
and you don't see that very often, right? I mean, that's probably not the most popular one that they have.
It's a literal sense of the word.
Yeah, and I personally, I enjoyed that one myself because I have a hard time when people say, well, minorities are doing this, but usually they're not in the minority. You know, they're not the one. They're the ones making a judgment without actually understanding what the argument is, understanding where it needs to go. And you can just tell me if I'm getting too soapboxy here, but you know, I have a hard time with that because that was one of the things Trump ran against, right? Was the white minority is getting trampled on. Huh?
He said he was anti-establishment, and then he surrounded himself with the billionaire establishment.
Yes, exactly. And that was the worst thing that could actually happen was that. And I don't know, it's one of those things that you just kind of go, well, it would be nice if you didn't do that. You know, if you didn't make that your big thing. Another one that I really liked was keep building walls, we'll keep building bridges.
That's not funny, but it's cool.
Yes. No, you're right, it's not funny. But I like that one. That's the one I like. One of the funnier ones, I think I posted it earlier today, was this lady said, I can't believe I'm still having to hold this sign. And it's an older lady. She's got to be in her 60s is my assumption. Maybe 70s, but at least 60s. And in all fairness, it's like, yeah, well, we're still fighting the same fight. Now, maybe it's a little bit more progressive.
Well, she has a swear word in there, which makes it funny, too, by the way. I can't
say it, though.
We're trying to save it. We're trying to stay PG for everyone.
Well, wait, I might be able to bleep you. You want me to bleep you?
Oh, man. Well, we have to know when the swear words are coming out.
Oh, okay, all right.
I'm like a horning, like, wah! Okay, I'm going to swear now. Like, that doesn't really work. Well, another sign that I thought was really funny was keep your tiny hands off my human rights.
Yeah. I wonder what that's referencing.
And that, I mean, but there's just some really great photos. Weak men fear strong women. Just pussy power. So, like, there's just some really, really great stuff that I'm not usually a sign person, but geez. So, like, there's a lot of people that have seen those photos or those kinds of things. But, I mean, it's just really fun. And this is a local thing. This was Michigan. Michigan was showing its colors and had a great little march. And I didn't hear a whole bunch of negativity. I didn't hear problems and riots and stuff. And we'll have the riot conversation and the Nazi conversation in the future. Those things aren't going anywhere, but we wanted to have a good time with this one. And so, I mean, did you see any other really good signs? Because we got a couple links here that have some few ones in here, and I was just going to browse through.
Yeah, one of the ones that I enjoyed, too, was mini snowflakes. Mini snowflakes means winter is coming. And that's a little shout out for Miss Jen over at Not Another Atheist Podcast, because she used to come over on here for Game of Thrones. And ironically, I've been watching Game of Thrones lately. Because I've never seen it. My wife was into it, and she's like, you need to do this. So all of a sudden now I'm going, okay, I'm going to watch Game of Thrones. But it was kind of funny because now I get the reference, right? Like, now it's funny to me. It never would have been funny. I'd have been like, what the fuck? Who cares?
You're part of the
winter's
club.
coming.
You're part of the club.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. But I found that one, I personally enjoyed that one quite a bit, inside of the fact that it makes even more sense because what's happening, right? You can call me a snowflake. You can call all of us snowflakes. You can say, oh, you're so small, or, you're so soft and blah, blah, blah. But in the end, if there's a ton of us, eventually we're going to lock it in. Another one I've seen.
Avalanche, bro.
Yeah, an avalanche. There you go. See, avalanche. Hashtag avalanche.
Yeah.
Well, there was another one I saw that said, and this one was out of Washington. It says, I've seen smarter cabinets at IKEA. That's amazing.
That's pretty funny. I saw this one that, I don't know if you're a fan of The Big Lebowski, the movie and all that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I saw the one guy carrying a sign and it says, "This aggression will not stand, man." And it just signs the dude. Like, I mean, a lot of this stuff you got to know, the undertones, and that's awesome. I mean, that's really funny. A girl should be two things: who and what she wants. It's like a little girl. I mean, it just brings a smile to your face seeing a little kid on this.
Yeah, and it kind of brings back, that conversation. And I know there's a lot of people listening. I know you're a Bernie fan, but, I had to have that conversation with my daughter saying, hey, Dad, how come there's never been a woman president? Hey, Dad, how come the woman president lost to the guy that tells us he's going to grab our private parts? And my daughter is 8 years old, for Christ's sake.
It's sad that that's as funny as it is, and also as true as it is. It really is. I mean, the one thing I saw, I can't remember who originally shared it, but the photo of Trump mocking the reporter with the hand disability, that photo, and he shared it, and he said, I will, for the rest of my life, not understand how this alone wasn't the end of it. And I agree 100%. I mean, I'm sure, and that's an area where the comedy here, the funny stuff, might be a little bit contextual, because a lot of people who supported Trump probably really thought that was funny and don't understand that is, is hurtful. And so hopefully, those types of things, people understand, that kind of comedy isn't okay, and we don't support stuff like that. But
it's the destruction of ideas, the destruction of philosophies. Yeah. That's what it is.
And so, with a tongue in cheek, obviously, we wanted to talk about this kind of stuff. But one of the most important things about freedom of speech is dissent. But with all the demands and intentions of the leaders of the country kind of mixed in there. So what has been done in the past has been through comedy and satire. Like, dissent, it's negative. It's inherently negative. It's against whatever kind of ruling group is in charge. And so the way they used to do this was through comedy and through satire, because literal dissent, like the idea between Fox News and a democratically elected president or a Democratic president, like, that is negative. There's no real intentional comedy. There's a lot of unintentional comedy on Rush Limbaugh's part, because the guy is just completely out of his pants. But the way they used to do it is with really, really, really smart people would critically analyze and critique the entire society that they're part of. And the people that used to do this through satire, Mark Twain and Jonathan Swift, are two of the idols when it comes to this. I picked a couple of quotes that they had from theirs that I thought were really cool on this. And one of them is just, reader, suppose you are an idiot, and suppose you were a member of Congress, but I repeat myself. And so there's a bunch of stuff like that. So, I mean, this kind of dissent, I wanted to go through a couple of these things. So, were there any more signs or anything that you wanted to hit on this, or do you want to move into this? Because
you can move into this. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. Again, another shout out to Jim. They said they're the one that said at least the Lannisters paid their deck. But one of my favorite ones was, I know signs. I make the best signs. They're terrific. Everyone agrees. That's the winner to me.
I think I saw that one, and there was a sign right next to it that said Trump is going to be a dictator or authoritarian or something. I think I saw that one. That one I did. Yeah, I did enjoy that. But I guess we'll finish up with the signs. We got some links, and there's going to be some ones that we didn't mention, so everybody can check them out. But back to Mark Twain. Twain was, back in the day, we don't know if he was an all-out non-believer. He critiqued religion quite heavily and harshly. But one of these that I thought was really good is, in the first place, God made idiots. That was perfectus. Then he made school boards. And that's got to be in reference to banning his books, which were, I guess, counterculture and a bit abrasive. But another one, political and commercial morals of the United States are not merely food for laughter. They are an entire banquet. And that is very relevant right now in this today, because the rest of the world is looking on with a seeming apprehensive laugh at us. So it's like they're not laughing with us, even remotely. Like, they're kind of scared and anxious, but it's also hilarious that we just picked an orange sewer monster to come through. Speaking of the best hashtag that I've gotten, so another call out to Not Another Atheist podcast, Keith over there. We have a hashtag war that we always try to think of an interesting one. My most recent one was the POTUS, right? President of the United States. So I thought of Orange Sewer Monster of the United States, and it actually works well with the osmotus. It just rolls off the tongue really nicely, so I'm going to be using that one a bunch now. But Jonathan Swift is the other one that for satire that I thought was absolutely amazing back in the day. And his was a little bit less pure comedy like what Twain used to do. His stuff was really subtle. Obviously, Gulliver's Travels is indicting of a lot of societies of the time. When true genius appears, this is a quote, you can know him by this sign, that all dunces are in confederacy against him. So true smarts, everybody who's ignorant, is going to be in collective attack against that true intelligence. And then the last one, there are many times my pants were so thin I could sit on a dime and tell if it was heads or tails. I don't know if that's got something to do with he didn't have any money, he was a struggling artist or what. But like his satire was just biting, and I loved it.
I do too. So why don't we take a quick commercial break, right, Hannah? We could do that, can't we? That's allowed in our comedy segment.
Yeah, you've got the controls right there. You can push the button whenever you want.
Really? Are you sure? Am I able to really do that? Can I push the buttons, Hannah? I like to push buttons, to be honest with you. You should know that by now. So we're going to take a quick commercial break because I need to get another Jaeger bomb, and Hannah needs to take a leak, and we've got a great segment coming up. So, that was very lighthearted. We kind of went through, we support the Women's March a lot, and we wanted to make sure that everybody knew if you wanted to go over to CFI, it is happening tomorrow at, I think, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And it'll be a great time to talk about how CFI is going to move things forward. We'll be right back with talking with a new author.
Hello, I'm Miss B. Haven.
I'm Denanda Wright,
And we're
promoting secular feminism. And you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Hi, I'm Trav Mamone.
And I'm Morgan Stringer.
Rants, major shade-throwing, and semi-funny skits?
Do you often find yourself reading the news and thinking, are you shitting me?
Then check out the Bi-Skeptical podcast.
Every 2 weeks, we discuss politics, religion, and current events from a skeptical point of view.
You can find us on iTunes, Spreaker, and Stitcher.
Check us out, because in the end, we're all a little bi-curious.
Looking for something new and exciting, or maybe just a change from the old Atheist Show format? Cellar Door Skeptics podcast provides listeners with hours of enjoyment each week on Spreaker and iTunes. Check us out as we talk politics, religion, science, reviews of books and music, along with the occasional interview just for a twist. Join Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern as they bring fresh content to you. Walk with us through the cellar door as we help you prepare for the revolution. You can find us on Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, and even on Facebook.
I can't believe you two took that raving lunatic seriously. What do you think this is?
Hey, my name is Wesley. I'm from the Atheist Nomads podcast. Kick back a while and listen to my friends on the Cellar Door Skeptics.
And now, back to Cellar Door Skeptics with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Hey-o, everybody. Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. This is our Funathon. Is that a new hashtag, Hannah? Am I allowed to say that now? Funathon.
Why not, bro?
Anyway, so we are back on Cellar Door Skeptics. We are talking in a few seconds with a new author on the scene with a amazing, there you go, slapsticky, funny comedy book. So we don't want to wait too long to bring him in because he has waited already 3 weeks to come on the show.
Oh, man.
It's been 3 weeks. So I wanted to introduce everybody to our friend, personal friend, Mohamed. And I'll be honest, I can't pronounce your last name, sir, so you're going to have to help me with that. Mohamed?
Ibrahim.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll probably butcher that a couple times.
The first one, maybe you could use some work on as well.
Probably, yeah.
Well, I think he puts the U in
okay.
there where there's an O, but either way.
I mean, I can pronounce your name.
Mohammed.
Fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
I am horrible at names. So we want to talk to this gentleman about his book. He has a new book released called Mohammed by Mohammed, The Essential Book of Islamic Heresy, Volume 1. And we've been following his cartoons. You've had a website, sir, have you not? And you've been releasing different cartoons. I don't know,
awesome.
once a day, I think. And they show up in my feed, and they're always entertaining. They are one of the best comic relief I get in the whole day.
Not quite once a day, but maybe once a week. Yeah, once a week is about as often as I do it. Sometimes a bit more often if something particularly delicious happens during the week, but it's about a week.
About a week. All right, so
If
once
ever
a week
gets
then.
in, I'll do once a day, but I'm not getting paid enough to do once a day. So maybe someday, but yeah, I'm pretty happy doing once a week.
It's hard to do like comedy once a day. Like you got to put together the image, the joke. You got to work through everything. Think it's going to be good. Play with the words. I mean, because Trump has the best words, but your words are pretty good too.
If Allah bestows His blessings upon me, then I can only hope. It's great. Mango Mussolini. I saw that on Twitter, but I just saw that. Mango Mussolini is one of the names I've heard. I've also heard, Cheeto Jesus. There's a few others. They're all equally delicious.
Well, one of the things. So your tagline for the book, it says, "This is a no holds barred work, historical satire that you share your knee-slapping funny cartoons along with a bit of history, making this a great read for experts on religion and lay people alike." And I'll be honest, I find that very soothing for me, because I'll be honest, I was never a very good steward to study Islam at all when I left religion. It never fascinated me. It never entertained me. It never seemed like anything other than a different version of Christianity. So I'll be honest, I never spent a lot of time looking into it.
Yeah, and to be honest, I do share that sentiment. I have been for years, I think, meaning to read the Bible, but I have not got around to it yet, because I know that Islam is essentially a derivative of the Bible. So why would I go back and reread? I mean, I just question the value of going back and reading all those stories, whereas I can find books that have already covered the material, that give you disclaimers and interpretation. So I feel like I can understand a lot better the gist of it without having to go through the whole book. Although one of my favorite comedians lately, Patton Oswalt, has said that if you haven't read the Bible, you absolutely should. You should give it a read, because it's got monsters and demons and dragons. It's got magic. It's amazing. But I just haven't had the time. I mean, we're all busy people, but I just don't see the value in reading another useless book that.
I would agree.
Like a far more embellished Quran, if I can say, because the Quran is much more Spartan. If you look at it, there is mysticism and magic and angels, but it doesn't have dragons. Okay, there it is.
No dragons, really?
Dragons.
Man, that's what drew me to everything else.
But the Bible has those as well. So
yeah, that's true. So tell everybody listening, because I think one of the big things people like to know is what drew you to write this type of a book, and then tell everybody a little bit about what your book's about, because we kind of want to know about you, we want to know about your book, and then we can kind of get into some of the details inside of there.
Well, I did write about this on my website, mocartoons.com. I actually have a whole tab that explains why I do what I do, because it's obviously something that might be ill-advised. Drawing the prophet is a surefire way to get yourself the wrong sort of attention. And one of the reasons I say it kind of sarcastically is, well, I want the high glam, sexed up lifestyle of an anonymous cartoonist. But in all seriousness, why I do it is, I've been saying this for a long time. Even anyone can draw the Prophet Muhammad. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, so I'll just say screwing a goat or with a bomb in his turban, and get a cheap laugh and get retweeted or get shared by idiots who just don't like brown Jesus. But that doesn't further the discussion. That doesn't help anyone understand what the religion is about. So what I try to do in my website is I always try to give a bit of pretext when I draw a comic, and they're not necessarily always about, making Muhammad look bad or anything like that. Like he's the Aisha, the 8-year-old girl, the pedophile, all this stuff. It's not always about making him look bad. Sometimes there's humor that isn't at the man's expense. I don't shy away from it when it is at his expense, but there's a lot more material there that's not being utilized, because it's just easier to draw him screwing a goat, and then people like who are just narrow-minded and just enjoy the fact that Islam is being ridiculed for its own sake. I get actually a lot of attention from what you might call alt-right people.
You know what? That is an interesting.
Kind of funny, because I just find it interesting that they think that I'm on their side then, that I like Jesus.
I was just gonna say it's a really interesting
falling down
angle.
and going, well, fuck this guy.
You're like the African Americans that went to the Trump the Trump rallies and stuff. People were like, they weren't sure. They're like, is this guy here to protest or is he here to be part of the club? And they did like kind of welcome you in for a second, but there's like I guess keeping you at arm's length. I mean, I can't really see them completely loving you.
Yeah, I saw there was during, I think it was when he was going head to head with Hillary, he brought on a couple of black women, and I mean, they have been called everything under the sun, but they were, I support Donald J. Trump, and she said it over and over again, and she got cheers, but, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm just like, okay, give her check. It's getting awkward.
And that's very true. So did you grow up? I don't like making assumptions, and I know you and I know each other, but tell us a little bit about your upbringing, and kind of how maybe you left the faith.
Well, I was raised as a Muslim. I was taught all the standard dogmas. I went to mosque once a week, sometimes more. Had the classes, but I'll skip through all that. When I started questioning it was, I mean, I don't identify as too much other than a heterosexual male, but I first discovered that men and women weren't, same sexes weren't allowed to get married, and I thought that was unfair. And I asked a few people this question: why can I do whatever I want, and the same isn't allowed for other people who clearly aren't making this up? They have these desires, and I never got a good answer. So that sort of led me into exploring other areas, and eventually I read, chapter 4 of the Quran, because at that point in my life I had the whole Quran, and I more gems that people gloss over or don't read, or if they've even read the book, or if they have, they don't bother to teach you those things. So it took a while, but yeah, it just seemed incongruent with wanting to be a decent person who cares about equality and in all things, not just sexually, but the Quran never bothers to outlaw or ban slavery. Islamic tradition gives it's almost like extra credit. If you buy and free slaves, it's extra credit, but you're not required to. Nowhere does it require you to free slaves. So by that measure, there's stuff like this that.
Yeah. Do they try and apologize it away? I mean, is that something that is typical within the Muslim community? And for example, Christians do that all the time.
Yeah, even from what I understand, Christian tradition is the same way, but it seems to be taken entirely for granted. The stories that are associated with the Prophet talk very casually and passively about this slave brought me this water jug and I saw the face of a prophet, or I had a dream. And slaves are just spoken about in a very, they exist, they're here, they're not going away. It's some traditions recommend freeing slaves, but arcane language, and you'd think that a universal message that's supposed to never change would be a bit past that.
Yeah. So some of the let's get back to some of your cartoons, and then we can kind of get into the book in a second. I'll be honest, one of my favorite cartoons that you drew this month was the parody on Mario. that was my favorite because if you think about it, right? How many
the Super Mario World landscape without too much. Sometimes people need a break because the politics really gets on your nerves and stresses you out.
That's the point of this show.
Oh, that's cute. Nostalgia. Why not?
Yes. Yeah, and we agree with you. And that's why I really... And I like Mario, but, when I saw that, I was like, there you go. And it makes sense, right? It makes sense in the context. So, let's go a little bit back to your book, because you also paint, too, don't you? You do a lot of painting.
Sorry, it's a bit choppy on my end. My phone is going wrong. 1 second.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I do. I heard you asked if I paint, and I do. Not too often, but every now and then I try to dabble.
Dabble a little bit. Yeah, because you did all the illustrations for the book, which is great. I love the illustrations. You're an amazing artist. And then you put some context within your book, and we'll post a link in the description just so everybody listening can hear it. There will be a link into the description so you can purchase his book right online. But tell us a little bit about the flow, the chapters within the book. I mean, it's not. Your book isn't like 500, 600 pages long. It's not like the actual Quran. I mean, I could sit down and read it without having to go, holy shit, I got to go do a whole bunch of research.
It's not the Hadith 2.0.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a bit of, obviously, added material fictitious, but a lot of it is honestly driven from what's in the Quran. A lot of it, if you weren't raised as a Muslim or hadn't studied it outside of what you might learn in school, which is next to nothing, you won't know what's going on. So I add a bit of historical context with a bit of satirical language. So there's actually 5 chapters, but volume 1 has only 2 chapters, and it's about 76 pages. One is a day in the life, and second is reflections on the divine and the supernatural, which is basically interpreting what God and the angels might be and behave like. But a day in the life, let me just give you an example. The first cartoon that I have in there is Mohammed with a random Arab traveler who's covered in saliva or dripping with it, facing the other way. Muhammad's kind of angry, and he says, "I don't know what it means if your camel spits on you. Stop asking such dumb questions." The whole thing about that is, during Muhammad's life, his followers and his partisans always asked him questions every chance they got. Why wouldn't they? Because he's right there, the living, vice regent of God himself. Who can you ask about anything that would be a better source? So, I imagine he got very pestered. And there's even a verse in the Quran where, and you can just imagine Muhammad one day, just these people won't leave me alone, writing it, verbatim says, almost verbatim, translated, don't overstay your welcomes when invited to the Prophet's house, but leave promptly. And don't come so early. You can look this up. I'll look up the verses later, but don't come so early as to wait for the meal's preparation. So right there in God's universal word are very personal just irritations, like leave me alone. Stop coming here.
So in terms of your inspiration for the book, we obviously know, we've heard, a little bit about your background. We've heard a little bit about why, you're doing this, what you're doing to give back. Talk a little bit about the inspiration for the individual cartoons. Is it something where you're sitting down for breakfast and you're eating, I don't know, a bowl of cereal or maybe a Pop-Tart or something, and then all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, this would be a great cartoon? Or is it something that's more well thought out, where you actually sit down and go, okay, I'm going to put the next 10 hours into this? What's your process?
Honestly, it's both. Sometimes because I was raised with the tradition and steeped in it, so I know a lot of the hadiths already, and even the ones where I sort of knew them. As I got older and studied the religion, I was able to to pinpoint where it came from, and this is an actual hadith, whereas I thought maybe it was a stupid story. But a lot of the stuff comes from the early sources. So sometimes something will come to me and I'll do it. But sometimes as I continue, because I still do make a habit of reading about Islamic history, the formative years, I'll learn something that then I think this might be a good idea to satirize or to parody. I'll give you an example. So that one was just me trying to put myself in the Prophet's head, like maybe he's kind of irritated by people pestering him. Another example, which required a bit more thinking, is as I read, I discovered that, and I knew this a while ago, but that a mere 29 years after Muhammad died, the Islamic Empire fell into the hands of the tribe that used to be his greatest enemies, who, they'd all, of course, converted since, because Islam was the driving power in the region, but they were originally the ones that fought him tooth and nail. So the empire fell into the hands of this the major adversary of Islam. His name is Abu Sufyan, just 29 years after he died. So I have a comic that says, just him with Abu Sufyan sitting on the couch because later on in his life, Abu Sufyan converted. And Muhammad says, you won't usurp the caliphate and murder my family immediately after I die, will you? And he's kind of looking at him, with his head to the side like, I don't know.
Maybe.
But
we'll see when you're dead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I said maybe we'll see when you're dead, like whether or not we'll actually do it. Like you always hear those stories. It's like, hey, we promise we'll donate this much money in your name after you pass away, and then they just stuff all the money in their pockets or something like that. I always imagine that's kind of how the battles between, like I always think of the Mongolians doing the same kind of thing. Obviously, the Islam, the Muslims had similar battles in the families.
You mentioned about Mongolians, and when you look at the Lombards and the Visigoths and all these, they're tribal people that live on the outskirts of great civilizations. Like even with the Roman Empire, same thing happened with Arabia. The Arabs were basically a lot of them were civilized, the ones living on the outskirts of the Roman Empire, but you had the peninsula tribes, and they were, like the Mongolians. They just got lucky and had a movement that had a lot of traction. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like a cyclical thing that you see in history where, and very generically, rough and ready, warriors who live, meagerly and live in tents will always defeat bloated empires that are on the decline, too much bureaucracy, too much wealth, lazy. So that's what happened with Islam, and they succumbed eventually to the same sorts of pressures as they expanded. The Islamic Caliphate broke up into three different empires, three different empires, and succumbed to the Turks and then the Mongolians hundreds of years later. So it's not like there was a spark of the divine and this was a world-changing event. It was actually very much a product of what always happens in history.
So Trump's going to break up the United States into three pieces. We're all going to be fighting each other. Not quite.
Not quite.
Not quite.
So another.
California will secede and they'll float off into the ocean.
California will run away. That's for sure.
Florida might recede into the Midwest.
They're going to be underwater. They're going to be underwater.
Yeah. So another question that kind of comes up and comes to mind here is that, they have Draw Muhammad Day, right? You kind of take it to a whole different level. And I know earlier you kind of talked about how you do it a lot more intellectually. And again, I'll be honest, I like your cartoons better than I like the cartoons of somebody screwing a donkey. I enjoy the intelligence behind them. So that's got to be a risk. Can you talk a little bit about, how you use your satire? And you don't have to tell us about all the risks, but this comes with a risk. This is, you're doing something that there is a community outside of the United States, and even probably a few inside the United States, that highly disapprove. And when I did some research and I was kind of looking into it, I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure exactly where they get from Scripture that he shouldn't be drawn. I guess I don't quite understand that side of it, and maybe you can give a little light to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of strong hadith. Hadith are stories of associated with the Prophet, many of which were compiled probably 200 years after he died, but they are held as by most Muslims as dogma, as very close. Not quite the Quran. The Quran is the divine word of God. Hadith, there's an understanding that some of it might be wrong or skewed, and some of them might be just invented for political gain, back in the day. But a lot of strong hadiths suggest that. I'll give you an example. There's a man who converted to Islam recently, was distressed, and he goes to a more established Muslim and says, I used to make my living, doing paintings of animals. That's how, and I sold them. That's how I survive out here in the desert. Mm-hmm. And he said, the Prophet said that people who draw the likeness of animals or human will die and go to hell. And at this, the man became very distraught. And the guy saw him and said, if you must draw plants and trees. So that's how the hadith ends, and it's in there. That serves as the basis, I think, for this whole idea that you can't. But not only can you not draw Muhammad, it's ill-advised to draw any human or animal life. And some extreme Muslims will even say that photographs shouldn't be around.
Oh,
wow.
Shouldn't be photographs of your family or this or that in your house.
So basically, I mean,
But
obviously, we're looking at
those
these
are
like
the minority.
visual
Most,
things. But what
most
about
Muslims
like the
and
Charlie
all-
Hebdo stuff like that? Like, do you think that's going a little bit too much, too rancorous, and too rough, or is it better that just anybody can do anything, let everybody have what they're doing?
Well, I didn't hear the first part of the question.
He asked if it's going a little bit too far with
Charlie
what
Hebdo.
Charlie Hebdo they're doing, because they have some very aggressive stances. They have some very aggressive cartoons, and so Hannah's question was closer to because yours are a lot more tasteful. You have some very tasteful drawings.
I try to be soft because there's a saying that you get more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. So if you say to a Muslim your religion is bullshit and you're deluded and your book is old and dusty and your morality has they're automatic. They're going to put up a wall mentally and not listen. And just like anyone else, just like Christians. And I think that actually explains in part the rise of Donald Trump. These people that they get called rednecks and hicks and inbreds all the time. Well, they take offense and they can vote. So what are they going to do? They're going to hit back at the people who offend them so much. So I always, in life and in cartooning, I try to take. I'm not going to mask what I believe or think, but I'm going to try to take a soft approach. I mean, maybe I'll get more rancorous as I
get older. So as we close out, what's that?
Like, I don't care who I offend. I'm gonna, like that. But
yeah.
I try to be. You have to be soft with people because if you shout at someone, they're just, hey, that guy's a dick. I'm not going to listen to you. That's the end of the story. Like what with Pamela Geller, a lot of her, and she's a fundamentalist Christian, so she's just as deluded as anyone else. She's just as deluded as the Muslims she tries to make fun of. So I don't like her or approve of what she does. I'm sure that some of the cartoonists that go there don't know her that well. They're just happy to have the opportunity, but I don't view her as someone I would admire or want to be associated with.
Cool. So as we close out this segment, we got to do two things. I want to make sure that you get to tell everybody again how they can follow you. But one of the last questions that we got in, when we kind of listed, hey, we got this on there. A lot of people talk about the atheist community. There's a big divide. You have some people in the atheist community that believe we should be softer, even softer than what your approach is. We shouldn't be ridiculing the religion. And then we have other people that say, why would we step away from this? Why would we shy? Obviously, we know a little bit about your stance, but from somebody that has come from the culture, somebody that actually, you're a minority inside of here, I think your opinion's a lot more valued sometimes than some of those of us that haven't had the same oppression that you had. So what is your opinion on people that choose those different sides? Can you have it both ways? Or
the world is completely turned upside down on its head, let me tell you. I find myself for the first time ever agreeing with this lunatic, you might know him, Milo Yiannopoulos, who shared a video yesterday of white feminist women in Berlin, Germany, chanting Allahu Akbar, and it was done in such a bad accent as a native Arabic. It was almost a travesty. I have to tell you, it was painful to listen to. But he was saying, what Milo added on his video was that once you asking for Islam, a religion that treats women badly, to come to Germany, yeah, good luck with that. Something along those lines. And I kind of find myself agreeing with him because you can't use as a symbol of fighting corruption and oppression something that's a symbol of oppression in other parts of the world that are less free, because doing that will give you diminishing returns of freedom. So the fact that I find myself agreeing on one thing with Milo Yiannopoulos, who I think is a despicable human being and a charlatan every sense of the word, and a self-hating disgrace to the entire LGBT community, it's kind of mind-blowing. And I think it's important to make sure that you're not so ingrained or entrenched in your political party that you can see reason on both sides. That's what I try to do.
Awesome. And like I said, we always like to. I'll be honest, I don't agree with Milo. I'll have to look that up though, because that may be the first thing that I would ever agree with him on, because I typically am very far away from any of his beliefs. But tell everybody real quick as we close out the segment, where can they get your book, and where can they get a hold of you if they have any other further questions, or they want to know how they can keep in contact with you when you get Volume 2 coming here up whenever you have the time to kind of push it out, because I don't want to say you're going to have it done by the end of the
I'm
year.
amazed that I released Volume 1, so Volume 2, hopefully it is coming. But the next 3 chapters, which are all there. I mean, the next 3 chapters are actually very interesting. I have them here respectively. Islam in the Modern World. Chapter 4 is the women, which corresponds to, in the Quran, what the chapter that does describe women. And then Queer Eye for the Pious Guy. And that should be coming sometime between next week and 3 years from now.
All right. Where's the best place they can get a hold of you?
My handle is speak_easy_mo, as in speak, where you could buy booze illegally. I need that. And website mocartoons.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, it was really fun to be on. We'll talk to you guys real soon, okay?
Okay, thank you so much. With that being said, we're going to close the segment out. We're going to kind of go into a science segment, because Hannah's got to have his science, right? If Hannah doesn't get his science, Hannah gets cranky. He does. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about, is diet soda going to kill you? It was an article written by Yvette and I can't pronounce her last name either, Intermont, and she's a scientist and a writer in Los Angeles. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. Make sure you refill those scotch glasses, recap off that beer, and we'll be right back to talk more science on Cellar Door Skeptics.
This is Ishmael Brown, the HNIC from the Angry Black Rant podcast, and you're listening to the Cellar Door Skeptics.
Hey, all you listeners, I'm Robert.
And I'm Amy from Secular Yakking.
And we just wanted to let you know that if you've got 30 minutes to kill,
then we're the podcast for you. We're just some old married couple who's been yakking at each other over the many years.
And we thought we should start making it so you can listen in on our yakking.
We dig past the mainstream and bring you the news that you may or may not have heard about.
We take a look at politics, religion, science, and pretty much anything we feel like yakking about and sharing it with you. And let us not forget our weekly Mr. Potter Award.
No, we're not professionals on anything we talk about, but we love to yak about stuff and give you our opinion on the matter.
So tune in at secularyakking.com or check out our feed on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and anywhere good podcasts can be heard.
And who knows what craziness will happen.
Yeah, just like this.
If you'd like to join the ranks of Patreons and sponsor the show, head over to patreon.com/Cellar Door Skeptics. For less than a 20-ounce soda or an energy drink each week, you can help sponsor us, the hosts, and our charity of choice. Patreon helps Cellar Door Skeptics create better content, become better activists, and it's going to help you stay healthier by drinking one less soda or one less energy drink each week. Click the link in the notes of the show to sponsor us today, because we bring the discussion with the sources.
Hey guys, this is Wyatt Mathers from the Atheist Avengers podcast. You are listening to the Cellar Door Skeptics. Prepare for the revolution.
Now, back to the show.
Hey, and welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you so much for joining us for another amazing episode. I wanted to remind everybody, I forgot to do this at the beginning of the episode, so I'm going to do it halfway through. We have some amazing guests coming up here in the near future. So we had Mohammed on. He was an amazing individual. We love that guy so much. We met him I don't know a couple years ago, I think, at the Michigan Atheist Convention out in Detroit, and we met him and his girlfriend, and they were one of the highlights of the whole weekend there.
I still have his card. I'm pretty sure I still have
I do. I still have his card too.
Yeah, and it's pretty slick stuff, man.
But we have some other guests coming up next week, and we'll have to have him back on to actually talk more about some of the different Islamic aspects and kind of look a little bit deeper into the religion. Maybe he could kind of do what Chris Sheldon did with Scientology. But in the future, we have another author, which will be on next week, called Karen Garst. She is the author of Women Beyond Belief, Discovering Life Beyond Religion. And she's going to give us a little bit of a background on her book, talk about why she wanted to write it. In the future, the week after that, we're going to be talking with a vegan, and we're going to talk about the moral grounds and why, if anything, we should be vegan or vegetarian. We're going to actually look at the philosophy behind that, which will be a unique look for me because as I have to start a diet with my high blood pressure, I have to figure out if I need to go that way. So mine will probably be health issues over moral, but we'll see. Maybe we can be convinced.
I just watched a documentary on that too, and I was just like, oh man, this is a good argument, but it still feels all propaganda-ish, so I'm curious to see if she can throw some stuff my way that feels a little bit less yelling at my brain.
Yes. We then have a interview with David Teachout and his new podcast, Humanity Values. The week after that, we're going to be talking with Glenn Tipsky of Rational Politics Project. And to end out all of the guests we have right now, Chris Watson from Podunk Polymath Podcast will be on to talk about his new show and all that fancy jazz. So remember, make sure you subscribe to us right on iTunes or Spreaker. That way you get updates when we're live and all that other gibberish that I won't go into because Hannah told me it has to be a funny show.
Funny.
And that's not funny.
I'm laughing at myself. We've been drinking. It's a good time.
You've been drinking. I'm sober. So.
Yeah, you're still damn sober. That's why we heard the glasses clink a little while.
All right. Anyway, so we did want to do a science segment tonight. As much comedy as we all found entertaining, we have to do science because both Hannah and I love science, and I like to be schooled a little bit. But this article came from me, and I think I might have a little bit up on him on this one.
He does.
So I'm going to ask you, Hannah, do you think diet soda or aspartame or any of those artificial sweeteners are bad for you?
Not particularly, no.
Damn
I don't.
it.
I've never really thought they were. I've always thought that and really in most cases things are bad for you in large quantities. So if you're taking tons and tons of this stuff, but in most cases, usually these things your body has the ability to break them down and go through it. So I'm curious to see what kind of levels these types of things could be dangerous or are dangerous consistently or not. But I really don't agree a lot with a lot of the I would call it propaganda stuff that comes out from sugar and sugar substitutions, as well as a lot of the stuff that you hear about, like marijuana. It's the beginning and entry drugs and stuff. So I usually take a lot of that kind of stuff as tongue in cheek, a little grain of salt, and then we'll see what happens here. So let's see if I'm going to learn something.
All right. So so what happened is Yvette shared this article on her Facebook, on her Twitter, and it showed up in my feed, and I was like, okay, well, this is kind of a debate that's been going around the office at my work lately. This is something that people have talked about, that they're like, oh, maybe diet soda is bad for you, Chris. You're fat. And I won't say I'm not fat. I mean, it is what it is, right? I have entertained lots of calories in the past, so I'm not going to try and hide it, And
you and calories be comfy together. Yeah. I wouldn't say you're, bad. Well, that word,
it is what
that
it
word
is, right?
itself can be a variety of things. But
I am definitionally overweight.
Yeah.
But I drink diet soda. That's something I do. I'll be honest. I drink diet soda, but I have for years. And I enjoy the taste. To be honest with you, I don't enjoy the sugar taste of the regular pop. Now, that could be because I abused pop in my youth. I had a friend that worked at a gas station, and I worked at Blockbuster. It was right next door. It was kind of like a Jay and Silent Bob type thing. I was able to go one place, get free stuff. He came the other way, got free stuff. Anyway, so I drank a lot of soda growing up. I just did. That was my teen years.
I like the fact that you call it
soda.
soda and not pop.
Oh,
that drives me nuts.
I'm going to call it soda for the rest of the show too, just to piss you off. Every time now.
No,
I
like it being soda. Pop drives me nuts.
Oh, okay.
Pop makes it sound like a 12-year-old kid, like meh.
Anyway, so this article, though, we're digressing here. The article here, she talks about on the article about the New York Post, and she says here's this article that people are sharing that seems to basically say diet soda is bad for you. So I looked at the article. It's rather short, and you get inside of it. Guess what it does, Hannah? It links to another article. Guess what that article is not?
A scientific article?
Exactly. It's a Telegraph article. It's a Telegraph
man.
article. Now, I'll be honest. I'm not like opposed to the Telegraph. They're not like some, big thing that I have a big issue with them. But anyway, it goes to another article. So then I go, okay, well, I'm going to read through this Telegraph article. And so I'm reading through it. There's no scientific links in the article. I can't find them.
That's the worst part.
And
I
it's like,
hate
hold
that.
on. So these people are sharing a New York Post thing, which is claiming to be a scientific article. And yet, here we are, not having a scientific article. And then I go to the next article, and I'm still not seeing it. So the closest thing they have is a link to to a certain website called the Imperial College of London. And there's a professor named Professor Christopher Millett. And he says this. He says, although artificial sweetened beverages contain fewer calories than sugary versions, researchers say they still trigger sweet receptors in the brain, which may make people crave food. You couple that with the fact that most people view diet drinks as healthier, it could lead to overconsumption. That's what the researchers argue.
So
now,
the argument here is that these sugar replacements, these sugar substitutes, are actually making you hungrier.
Well, maybe that's
That's
what
the argument.
Yes, but that's not what the original Post argument was actually about. That was not the original Post argument. That it's just could lead to these things.
Okay.
It's talking about, all the horrible things that, are inside of it, right? So you want to know what the title of the New York Post article is, Hannah?
I'm going to guess.
Diet drinks might actually be making you fatter. That's how they lead the article. So now, in all fairness, right, Hannah, if they had said, diet drinks could lead you to eating a lot more food, therefore you're fatter. Okay, fine, right? That's fair, but that's not a catchy title, right? That's not a clickbait title.
I was going to say, sniff, sniff, I smell clickbait. That's really what that comes down to. New York Post is really is pretty guilty of this on a regular basis. It's almost comical, keeping with the funny stuff of the show. Like, it's kind of ridiculously funny how they will twist something around that's obviously pretty straightforward, pretty plain, pretty boring, and just be like, this one thing may be giving you cancer. Find out tonight at 11. It's the old joke, right? It's like, we'll find it, you may die in 18 minutes. Find out in 37. It's like all that kind of stuff. But when I see these types of things, like, yelling and screaming and saying this and that, I usually do what you just did. I check through some linkages in the article. If there's anything even remotely resourceful, then I go through it. I actually debunked someone's post earlier today. They linked something, and then it was an easy search, and that's how this kind of thing is. It's an easy search for you to find some real scientific articles and see if anything corroborates. If it doesn't, just toss it aside or make fun of it. I mean, really, in the end, people need to be called out if they're sharing something that doesn't have any scientific merit, or if you can't find any, at least.
Yeah. And so that's actually, that was part of the reason I wanted to do this article, because she actually goes a little bit farther in depth, right? She goes farther into depth than just this. She doesn't just say, okay, well, it's a BS article. It's basically fake news. It's alternative facts. Let's just call it what it is. It's alternative
Trumpism,
facts,
man.
Yeah. So she actually wrote a amazing article, and I'm not even going to link every single one of her links in our link section because it would be too long. Because I really encourage people to go over to the post and actually read her post, because she has all her links right in there. You can click through everything as you're reading it, and you can actually do all your own research.
Are they have paywalls on the stuff? Did you click through?
Actually, they do not.
That's the best.
I have not found a paywall yet. Now, I haven't read through every single detail of every single article, but every one of the scientific articles I clicked through did not have a paywall.
That's huge in my book. That's huge.
Yes. Yeah, I think so too. I think that's amazing that she doesn't do that. So she basically said this. She said, hey, we have, 7 or 8 different ways that Diet Coke or soda could be bad for you. One of them is, and she lists through all of them, and we're going to go through them real quickly here in a few minutes, and then we're going to kind of go back to them and do a little bit more in-depth discussion. She says, Diet Coke deadens your taste buds. Is that true or not? Diet Coke causes cancer and multiple sclerosis.
Ugh.
Diet Coke causes tooth decay. That's my favorite one to talk about here, and just so you know. Diet Coke causes depression. Diet Coke causes diabetes. Number 6, Diet Coke can clean rust off a car. And her answer to this, and I will use a...
We're going to do it.
We're going to do it. Because she drops it, and I'm going to drop it as well. It'll be my only one.
You can hit your bleeper button. You got a bleeper button?
I think I do. We'll try. We'll try for the bleeper button.
Let's see what we got here.
And the last one is Diet Coke makes you gain weight, which, again, for me, that was the biggest draw to this article because that was a conversation that came up at work. People basically told me, well, you're an idiot for drinking Diet Pepsi. Why would you do that? It means nothing to us. Why you're just making yourself fat for no reason, right? So,
wow.
I get ridiculed at work a lot sometimes. Anyway, so let's tackle the first one, Hannah. Let's go into Diet Coke deadens your taste buds.
Okay, did my tongue fall off? Or is that what we're talking about here?
Mm-hmm. And in all fairness, you've had Diet Pepsi at my house quite a bit.
Yeah,
and it has artificial sweeteners.
I can still taste my Centennial Founders IPA plug moment here. No problem. My tongue works just fine.
Just fine? Are you sure?
Yes, I can even taste the Jaeger you usually mix into that Pepsi.
So what she talks about, she starts the article off by talking about the studies that people are trying to elate to that are, a big conversation topic here, right? How does it deaden your taste buds? Well, she says this. She says, think about it. What you need to do is actually look into the research. So NCBI did a study on taste buds. They did an actual study, and they said the biggest factor is time. It's your age. It's not the chemical.
So you're 65 years old. You can't taste things like you did when you were 20 years old.
Yes.
It's Diet Coke's fault. Sue them.
Yeah. And she goes into talking about something called the nocebo effect. And the nocebo effect is when a negative expectation of a phenomena causes it to have a more negative effect than it otherwise would. A nocebo effect causes the perception that the phenomena will have that negative outcome to actively influence the result.
So then I could never participate in a homeopathy test. There's no way I could ever remotely perceptibly think that that's ever going to do a positive thing. So
exactly. And that's one of the big factors here. And you want to take this into your thought process. You want to take this into discussion. We want to look at this because, in all fairness, that's kind of talks about a non-correlation, bias, right? I mean, how many times do our biases get in the way?
All the time.
Your bias, you like 5 gold stars. I know you do. That's exactly why, you need better ratings because it makes you feel good. But in reality, it doesn't do anything
and
to you.
I also have a significant self-esteem issue, and I love it when people tell me that I'm doing well on podcasts and iTunes.
Jesus.
That makes me feel
okay,
better,
enough self-flagellation right there. So Hannah, what else? Did you look into the study at all? Did you actually read the study or any parts of the study? Because that was one of the first scientific studies she posted in there.
Well, if we're still talking about the deadening the taste buds, it doesn't seem like that's too big of an issue for me. I mean, really, in the end, we're talking about something that's going to be, well, can you taste it? How can we quantify taste? Like, how can you measure? Like, there's no standard of measurement. It's kind of like saying, what's your emotional response to Coca-Cola? Like, where are you going to get any kind of a zero here? There's no standard to place coming from that. So we can move on to the next one. Coke causes cancer and multiple sclerosis. Wow. Really, really going for the top shelf on this one here. So, I mean, clickbait across the board. Just that little bit there, I mean, without bringing in 10,000 views. It says there's no link has been established. So in a 2005, a laboratory study found more lymphomas and leukemias in rats fed very high doses of aspartame, equivalent to drinking 8 to... Really, this is an interesting number. Equivalent to drinking 8 to 2,083 cans of diet soda daily. So they must have loaded these poor little bastards up. However, there are some inconsistencies in the findings. For example, the number of cancer cases did not rise with increasing amounts of aspartame, as would be expected. So when you're looking at more going into the rat, you should expect more occurrence of said cancer. And so the study basically said that, well, we're getting more because it's getting aspartame, but it doesn't seem to be rising with rising amounts. So you could get one tiny little grain, or you can get what would probably be a lethal dose in a human. And apparently we're getting, a rise in lymphoma, but we're not seeing a rise with, I guess, the amount of what you're getting. So it seems fishy to me. It doesn't seem like there's a causation, but it seems like a correlation. Like this rat has aspartame in it, and it also has cancer. But I don't see a causation between those two. I just see them as a I would call them a statistical anomaly, or maybe like I said, a correlation. So like there might be something in here, but there's not nearly enough information to say yes, this diet soda sugar substitute is causing this lymphoma.
Yes, and that's exactly the same thing with the multiple sclerosis. And they even have the National MS Society actually debunked this. They actually have different studies that they've done, and it's debunked it. And so, that's kind of the thing with here is you look at it and you go, in reality, if it doesn't do this, why are people still talking about it, right? This is almost as insane as she quotes blaming Obama for 9/11.
Oh, man. I saw a guy that there was a street interviewer that said, it's like, man, what was Obama doing? Why wasn't he in the Oval Office when 9/11 happened? And this guy was like, yeah, I'd like to know the truth of that, too. It's like, come on, man. Like, really? Did you just... where did you come from before you got in front of a camera? How does a camera not surprise you? Like, why are you not trying to eat the microphone? I don't understand. Either way, the National MS Society found no links on there. And, I mean, these are people... This is their job. This is what they do every day. But nope, the BuzzFeed article that you read that one day, that's the truth, no question.
Yep,
so we're
exactly.
looking at, not so much fake news, but just incorrect stuff in, hyperbole and rumors that seem to be going through everything. So now to do tooth decay. Really? This is your favorite one?
This is.
It is.
It is. I don't know why. All
Do
right.
you not like dirty teeth?
Well, I don't. Not really. I brush my teeth like 3-4 times a day. To be honest with you.
Oh,
so,
wow. Okay, I get twice a day. I'm not an overachiever like you.
Nope. But so, Jesus, you're just gonna. Mess
I told
up the
you this is
whole
gonna be a
phone.
funny episode, man. I'm banging. I'm on all cylinders here.
So what they talk about is a bunch of flawed experiments, right? And so you're going to go, well, no. How can scientific experiments be flawed experiments? And I'm like, well, hold on, right? So what do the experiments normally do? Usually you take a tooth, right? And my son's actually done this. That's why I like this, because I got to show him something and explain this to him earlier tonight. But you take the tooth and you soak it for 2 weeks to 2 months, depending on what you're trying to gauge, right? The amount of fluid that you have to put for that length of time is inconsistent to what normal people would do. So think about it this way, Hannah. How many diet sodas do you think I drink a day?
I'm going to guess 220 ounce.
Fair enough. It's if there is a consumption of whiskey with those, that's fair. If there is no consumption of whiskey, less than 20 ounces. Okay? So, but think about that. How long do you think it takes me to drink a 20-ounce soda? I just said 20 minutes, right? So for 20 minutes, I'll drink a soda over 20 minutes.
And that's not like swishing for 20 whole minutes. That's a sip.
Exactly.
5 minutes, a sip. 5 minutes, a sip.
Yes. So the average duration of the soda inside of my mouth is probably 2 seconds tops. And that's if I want to savor the taste. If I want to go,
oh yeah,
Diet Coke.
Brown liquid. Yeah.
Well, that's usually the whiskey. We talked to Dan last week. That's Scotch, man, I tell you. But in all fairness, it's inconsistent. It makes no sense why people would use that as a conversation.
So the argument is they're keeping these teeth in the liquid for a very long time?
Yes. Your exposure is over 1,000% or more than you would normally ever do in the same amount of time.
Okay, so it says here that 2 weeks or 2 months?
Yeah, there's different studies that soak them for different lengths of time.
Oh man, that brings to mind the Mountain Dew. There was a lawsuit where Mountain Dew was sued. This guy said that he found a rat or a mouse in his Mountain Dew can, and the Mountain Dew CEO was like, "You wouldn't know it was a rat." And the guy was like, "No, it was a rat. Or a mouse. I could see the bones. I could see them. It was a mouse. I opened it up and it was in there." And the guy was like, "That's wrong, because if the mouse was in there, it would have been gone by the time it got to you." And they proved it out. Like Mountain Dew would dissolve the entirety of a mouse carcass to the point where it's just like mush floating at the top. And there's a guy on YouTube that did it, and it was one of the most unnerving things I've ever seen. So, I mean, we're talking, 2 weeks to 2 months of constant soaking. There's no way this is a realistic thing. We talked about this with the bees way back in the day about the neonicotinoids, at least at the studies that they had there. There's been new studies that have come out, so we plan on revamping that for anyone who has a comment or anything. But like, there's no way your teeth are going to be spending 2 weeks to 2 months inside a soda. It's just not going to happen in the real world, and that's important for testing because it has to be real. It can't be like just imaginary.
Yes, and exactly. And the next one that she goes into is Diet Coke causes depression. Now, if you click on the first link for there, and if you're following along with us live or in the post show or whatever, you can actually go and click this link. Now, the funny thing is, my computer has a anti-blocking pop-ups, right? It has some program that does that.
Ad block?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. Maybe.
You
Whatever
know?
it is.
It just came with it?
No, I installed it, but I don't.
Oh.
The topic here is not what ad block software Chris Tanner uses.
We should know, man.
I'm not.
You got to be protected. You can't be diving into that stuff.
Anyway,
you can get
moving
it.
past. I'm moving past this. So the next one, when you click on that, they have a whole bunch of different ones. It doesn't talk just about depression, though that's what she calls out on this one. But if you look at the little info card, and we don't want to call them memes because it's got a lot more information. They have a link to the tooth decay thing from MSU, right? And you're like, oh, holy shit, this is University of Michigan. I'm excited by that because I'm a big U of M fan, and, they're a very good science school. So I click on it, and sure enough, it starts off by talking about what they're doing with the teeth, and they show the different weight losses, and they show the different weight gains, and they show, how the tooth decay, and you're like, okay, well, yeah, that looks really bad. If you read the bottom of the article, right, if you go all the way to the bottom of their article, you will definitely disagree with what they're claiming. And you want to know why? Let me tell you why, Henry. I'm just going to tell you why, because I got to stand in a soapbox at some point tonight.
Do it, damn it.
And so what it does is it says, while this study does show that sodas do create tooth decay, there is a couple of different things inside of here that you could criticize us for. One, it's a small sample study. Boom, there you go. Okay, that's one negative. The second is the consistency with the study. Then it goes on to say, the whole point of this study was not to show if sodas decay teeth over periods of time. It was to show which ones do it the most, right? So if you had Mountain Dew, Diet Pepsi, Diet Coke, whatever, all lined up together, and you soak teeth in them, which one would dissolve it faster? The whole point of the bloody study was not to figure out if it decays teeth or to try and prove that sodas are very bad for you or that diet soda causes tooth decay. They all do if you soak your teeth in them.
It seems like they're starting with an assumption immediately anyways, like diet or soda, any form of soda will start decaying your teeth. And so it's like, well, I mean, obviously soaking your teeth in weird chemicals like that, it's going to do something weird to it. But
yeah,
and so we're looking for the king. Obviously, the diet soda is going to do some, but nobody soaks their teeth in this stuff full time. So we pretty much knocked it out of the book.
Yep. So they go on to depression, and they say they actually have a genuine study that was done by the American Academy of Neurology. And that article, or that study, actually claims that 4.3% of the people that were tested, and they did do a 263,000 person study, got diagnosed with depression within 10 years after consuming diet soda on a regular basis, right? Now, that could be damning.
Yeah.
It's only 4.3%. But she says, here's the big thing that it calls into question. And they actually have scientists that help with that study later call its own study into question that says there's no mechanism for causation at all.
That's an important thing.
Yes.
I mean, really having a mechanism as to pose, like, okay, here is the correlation, and how do you connect it to a causation? Oh, we're doing a shot of Jaeger in the middle of our scientific study. Well, either way, the question is, what's the mechanism there? So you have to have some kind of a mechanism, some kind of scientific thing that's driving this, that connects the correlation to the causation.
Second, they never did that study again. They never did another study by the same people to even see if it was a repeat experiment, right? There was nothing of that magnitude ever done. So she basically says, well, there's no trend, there's no contingency, they don't even address a bias, right? You're telling these people, and they didn't do a study on a range of people. They did it between, I think it was like 35 and 60 years old.
Well, even a low number of people being tested again for repeatability. I mean, we got a standard. We have a level of 4.3%. Even if it wasn't a full end at 263,000, like let's say you don't get anywhere near that, but let's say you just do 10,000, we should see. I believe would that be 430 people? We're looking at some pretty statistical analysis that should be at least somewhat repeatable, even in smaller studies. So I mean, they could try this again if they can't get the full on thing, but it doesn't seem like they're even trying to do that.
No, at least they have not yet. Maybe they will in the future. Who knows? The next one she talks about is diabetes, right? Diabetes
that is linked pretty hard with soda.
Yeah. Well, not diet soda though, right?
Yeah.
So what she says is, she goes, think about this. Do you think diabetes just comes about?
Just naturally from genetics?
No, like diabetes just randomly happens. As in, one day you wake up with diabetes.
No, as far as I know, it's not a sudden onset.
Do you think diabetes is based on one specific thing?
Yeah, it's not a sudden onset disease by far.
Exactly. That's the whole point. So how can you test this? How can you just test this and say, okay, hey, all right, so pick me, right? I probably shouldn't say some of these things on air, but I do. I'm not diabetic yet, but when I just went and had all my blood tests done, and I have some high cholesterol. I also have high triglycerides. And they say if unmaintained, it is a precursor to diabetes. So if I continue to live the lifestyle I do, and I'll admit I'm not a big exercise person right now, that I could end up with diabetes in the next 10 to 20 years. There's a higher probability for me than, you don't exercise either, so God only knows. The higher probability than, let's say, my son who does exercise, right?
Well, what about your your workplace? Don't you run around a factory all the time? Like,
yeah, it's not enough, trust me.
Not enough? All right.
Yeah. I have bad genetics, too. You can blame my dad for that. But you go back to, and diabetes runs in my family. But let's go back to the article. Stop diverting the article. So they say that the article, the studies that were done, the people who were drinking the diet soda versus the regular soda, what they were doing also is cutting out sweets. They were just doing one thing. So the study isn't actually isolating any sort of incident.
Well, diabetes is a lifestyle situation.
Yes.
It really is. And so you can't throw that right on you're drinking Coke versus Diet Coke. That's the reason.
Yes. And that's what they came up to. They also had a study where they looked at insulin response, right? In animals, there was a response, right? Like an uptick. In humans, nothing. So when they studied humans, no insulin uptick. Which, what is an insulin uptick typically kind of designate itself as?
As far as I know, it's high sugar.
Yes. You need more insulin to help regulate it, and either your insulin doesn't work, and that could have been a cause. But in typical people, your insulin you'll produce a little bit more insulin based on that. That did not happen. So now, this is my second favorite one.
Second? Really?
Yep.
I figured
second favorite one.
This one's going to have a buzzer in it. That this one's got to be your favorite one. I mean, it's my favorite one. I didn't read the article completely. I'm pretty sure this was my favorite one because I've heard the argument against the regular, but I didn't know Diet Coke could also do it.
So she says this. She says, Diet Coke can clean rust off a car. Now hold on, you're not a car. This argument is stupid. Seriously, it's just a stupid argument. That's all it is. A stupid argument. That's all. So like that's literally the whole paragraph. So we won't get into that one too long. In all fairness, who really cares? Can it clean rust off your car? Maybe it can. If it does, hey, guess what? Then in that aspect, maybe I should start using that to clean my car instead of water because, hey, if we run out of water, it's going to screw me more than if I run out of diet soda.
Coke used to be used as a cleaner, and so like it could break that stuff down. But all the sugar and the high fructose corn syrup and stuff versus the natural sugars that we use changes the way that stuff dries out. Don't put that on your engine. Don't put it on the outside of your car. Don't put it on the inside of your car. Don't do anything but pour that down your face.
Yep. Lawyer Chris here is making sure you gotta give a disclaimer here. We do not endorse pouring diet soda or regular soda
you sound like
on your
Gore.
car. Close enough. All right, so the last one. Let's get into the last one and get out of this segment because I want to get out of this segment and get back into the funny. Diet Coke makes you gain weight. That's what people claim, right? So her first opening portion is she says correlation does not mean causation.
I'm guessing that's a theme for the whole article.
It is really. It really is, but I didn't want to give it away till the end. She says they have somebody from an interviewee called Barry Popkin, PhD, right? And he says obesity may be linked to weight gain, but probably not, because there's no research that shows it. He says most studies cited are talking about people who have not counted their calories during the study. So if you don't know all the variables in a study, do you think it's a good scientific study, Hannah?
Not quite.
Are you sure? Because I mean, if we did a scientific study, we could just say fuck it and call it a day.
I'm an engineer, and when I didn't know what the variables were in an experiment, I usually got a failing grade on that experiment. I'm almost positive that I failed that experiment. If I didn't know all of the variables that I had to measure, yeah, we're screwed.
Yeah, it is what it is. So that was one of her critiques was, you have limited variables. If you have limited variables, you cannot study. And in all fairness, she's a researcher. She's done all this. She has degrees. She did this for a living. This isn't like just some journalist that says, hey, I'm going to write about this. She actually said the exact same thing you said, that she would be in trouble if she only came up with 17 out of 100 variables for her research project. I mean, it would just be illogical. Now, as we close it out, she says none of these studies properly showed the link of diet sodas and weight gain. What they do show is that people who use diet sodas and cut down on calories did lose weight. But if they increased their calories or didn't pay attention, then they did not. So think about it this way. If you eat a stack of pancakes every morning with maple syrup, right? And then for lunch, you're like, I'm going to have a salad and a breast of chicken. And then for lunch, you come home, or for dinner, you come home and you're like, okay, I'm going to have 6 Diet Cokes and I'm going to have 4 slices of pizza and a pound cake, right? That's well over the regulated amount of calories.
I have a real life moment of this exact thing happening. I was with a friend of mine in high school, and we were waiting in line at McDonald's. And he says, man, I'm going to cut back a little bit. I got to start eating a little healthier. The woman immediately after he said that, it's like, what would you like? And he says, I want the double quarter pounder with cheese super combo. I'm just going to go large size instead of super size, and I want a diet. Like that was his way of cutting it down. Is going to a large instead of a super size and going diet. That is the epitome of exactly what we're talking about here. Is like, you can't use these things as substitutes. There's no get rich quick. There's no easy fast solution to losing weight, being healthy. It's a lifestyle change, and so you can't throw diet in there and expect it to reduce weight. So if you think the diet is your shortcut out and you're slamming all kinds of food, you're not going to have a happy ending.
Exactly. And she closes the article out by saying this. But Diet Coke and all other artificially sweetened beverages out there are not going to make you fat, give you cancer, or kill your taste buds. Like so many other things in life, moderation is the key. Moderation is where it's at. You probably shouldn't have too much of it, but if you swapped it out for your morning coffee or your caffeine fix, it's not the end of the world. So what we're going to do is take our last commercial break, and what we're going to do is come back and talk about Saturday Night Live and Hannah's favorite skit.
I'm Misbehaving.
I'm Demanda Wright.
And we're
Promoting secular feminism. And you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Brewpubs have always been a place to sit back, have a few drinks with friends, and talk about everything under the sun. Skeptics Brewpub is just such a place. Each week, Brother Brewer invites people to come in and talk about politics, religion, skeptical inquiry, beer, geekdom, and whatever else happens to come up that night. You can join the conversation by chat each Monday night at 8:30 p.m. Central Time on Spreaker, or catch the show later on iTunes, Spreaker, Google Play, or any other podcatchers out there. That's Skeptics Brewpub, where nothing is sacred and no conversation starts without a 2-drink minimum.
Considering how you want to help Cellar Door Skeptics, head over to iTunes or your favorite podcast app and give us a rating, because every rating helps push us in front of new listeners. And since our main goal here at Cellar Door Skeptics is to provide the most accurate information possible, we hope that more ratings will mean that more people get to hear the topics that we're presenting. We don't insist that we get a 5-star rating, but Hannah's favorite number is 5, and the more gold stars he gets, the more special he's gonna feel. So what do you say? Head on over to iTunes or Google Play, give us a rating, and help engage with Cellar Door Skeptics today.
This is Daniel from the Country Fried Free Thought Podcast. I hope you enjoy Cellar Door Skeptics as much as I do, as they help us prepare for the revolution.
Now, back to the show.
Welcome back. This is the last segment. It's been a fun podcast. We've a lot of lighter topics. I've laughed a lot more, and I'll be honest, I needed the laugh. I needed the laugh because I've had a lot of anxiety lately, given my health issues, and all the different things surrounding my personal life. And I don't want to get into it here because I don't want to down the episode. I don't want to make this episode about Chris Tanner's problem. Blah 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 blah. But in all fairness, I'm very excited about what we're doing here at Cellar Door Skeptics, and I really enjoy that everybody comes out every week to listen to what we have. If you have a topic or anything you think we should talk about right on the show, make sure you send us an email at cellardoorskeptics@gmail.com, and we'd be more than happy to actually get involved and work with you and talk to you about what you're interested in, and if you think a guest is a good fit for the show.
And you can all caps yell at us on
You
Facebook
can all
too.
caps yell at us. I'm okay with it. So is Hannah.
Facebook
Hannah likes all
too,
caps.
right in public. Just tell us we're the biggest idiots ever. That is
Hannah
also
is
absolutely
one of the biggest
fine.
idiots ever.
It happens from time to time. I do that thing that makes me seem like an idiot. I don't know.
But in all fairness, we actually have a couple of spots coming on a couple of different podcasts. First, on February 13th, we are going to be on Secular Yakking. So if you've never heard of that show, earlier we played a commercial of theirs. Please go over, check them out. We're going to be on their show February 13th. We will post links when we go live. We'll post links beforehand, so you'll be able to go catch us and figure out where we're at. Then later on in March, we're going to be on Skeptics Brew Pub. And I'm told it's a good drinking episode, so we're able to drink as much as we want. You're going to hear us get a little bit more loose.
Oh, man.
And I might start swearing again. I don't know. Maybe I'll swear again.
We'll see if they allow it.
So please remember, if you would like to go over and help sponsor the show, head over to patreon.com/Cellar Door Skeptics, because guess what? For less than a 20-ounce soda or an energy drink each week, which decays your tooth, by the way, you can help sponsor the hosts of our show, Chris Squared, and our charity of choice. Patreon helps us create better content, become better activists, and it's going to help you stay a little bit healthier, not your teeth, but you personally, by drinking one less soda or one less energy drink each week. So come on, go head over, sponsor us today, because we bring the discussion with the sources.
You might not get diabetes, too.
You might not get diabetes.
Or
you might
as
not get
Wilford
cancer.
Brimley says,
it won't
diabetes.
kill you.
Diabetes.
So we want to thank our Patreons, Alan and Denny. Thank you so much for heading over and sponsoring us every month, because, again, for as little as $1 an episode, you're more than able to help sponsor us, purchase, different equipment that we need, pay for our Spreaker subscription, and even, you're able to help out different charities, because we donate at minimum a portion of everything we bring in, and like this year we donated well above what we even spent on the podcast over to another good cause. But without further ado, Hannah wanted to do a little segment, a little SNL segment. He wanted to talk a little bit about SNL, and so Hannah, I'm gonna let you intro the segment and tell us what was the point and what did you want to talk about here.
Well, I've seen SNL really changing of recent. I mean, I was an SNL fan when I was younger. So we're talking, I guess, the Adam Sandler, Chris Farley, David Spade days. That was probably when I was younger. Phil Hartman, big shout outs to Phil Hartman. R.I.P. Porson for your dead homie, right? And so, like, I mean, SNL was something that was a weekly thing because the internet didn't really exist for me yet, and on-demand TV didn't exist. So, like, I was Saturdays, Sunday, Fridays, whatever days. There were, that free time to watch TV and wasn't school and going to bed early and stuff. That was, that was one of the things when I was old enough to stay up and watch SNL. It was a big deal. And so, like, politics was there, but it didn't seem like it was so much slap you in the face, hit you in the head like it is now. The show is significantly more political, and I'm guessing it's become that way because, I mean, they probably got positive responses from that, but I really wanted to talk about, like, because their bits are funny. It's still a funny show. It to a certain degree. Some stuff is good, some stuff isn't. I mean, I prefer the style of when I was younger, as do most people who are semi-romantic about when they were growing up. I guess people that are a little bit older, they love the Steve Martin, Dan Aykroyd days, and those were really good. Dana Carvey and stuff was really, really great when it was the thing. But like the political bits have changed a little bit. So I know, Chris, your upbringing was under a canopy, and there was some stuff like that going on when you were younger. So you didn't really have the SNL thing. So what was kind of like when you first started seeing SNL? What was your first bit?
For me, well, my first bit was probably at the end of my high school years. I kind of broke away from my parents. I had a couple of friends, ironically enough.
Influences.
Yeah, they were both atheists, actually. And it's a funny story, and I wish Maggie would listen to the show, because their mom was the one that actually used to start talking to me about religion, because she wasn't an out atheist. She never said, hey, I'm an atheist, but she always challenged my beliefs personally. She always went out of her way to say, do you think that makes sense? You know that's pretty anti-women, Chris, right? You know that passage in the Bible just doesn't make sense. Anyway, so...
That's a mom going the extra yard.
Oh,
Holy
she
moly.
did. Yeah, well, I won't say all the other... not saying that her house was the best influence on me, but one of the big things was, because I couldn't watch a lot of, controversial TV at my house. At their house, they were very obsessed with stand-up comedians. That was a big thing. I got introduced to so many stand-up comedians. Like, I could tell you, my favorite stand-up comedian is Eddie Izzard. Love him.
Really?
And
that's awesome.
That's only because I saw his stand-up there. Like, that's what I grew up on in terms of when I got into my comedy. So all of a sudden, I'm 16 years old going over these people's houses, and they're
Izzard is what you fell in love
yes.
with. That is like insane.
We
man.
did, and that's what I started with. And then Robin Williams. I saw like an 80s Robin Williams stand-up, or
that
maybe it was
stuff
late
was
70s,
good.
where he's coked out of his mind.
Yeah.
His New York one. Love that. That's my favorite one. I mean, he does the little penis impressions, and he talks about doing coke and how it's like having a kid, and when you have kids, you might as well not do coke anymore, because you don't know when you're sleeping, and they're vomiting, and they're sleeping, and they're shitting, and the next thing you know, it just all wraps into that. And I grew up on that.
SNL was kind of a boring run into.
Yes.
It wasn't nearly as good as that.
No, but what happened was we went after some of the older artists, let's say, right? So all of a sudden I was watching older SNL stuff. Older stuff that, wasn't running currently at the time. Because you got to think, late 90s is when I graduated high school. Well, I actually graduated 2001. But late 90s when I first started getting into comedy. And for me, my favorite SNL, the first one I ever actually watched, the very first one, was a Celebrity Jeopardy one, where we have what's his face? I'm drawing a blank. Alcohol.
I don't know which. Are we talking about?
Burt Reynolds, the guy that played Burt Reynolds.
Oh, Norm Macdonald.
Norm Macdonald. Love Norm Macdonald. But that was my first actual SNL introduction. Was that? Literally, because they taped everything. They had, that's back in the day with tapes and no DVD players, right? Tapes were popular. They had tapes. I actually still have a Robin Williams tape, and I don't tell them this, but I have a Robin Williams tape, and I stole one of their other tapes, not on purpose. I just kind of borrowed it and never gave it back. But I have a Robin Williams tape, and I also had a tape with a bunch of various stand-up, but at the end it had random SNL stuff on it, and that was one of them. One of them was a Celebrity Jeopardy with Burt Reynolds, and he's just like, hey, Turd Ferguson. And he just would go off, and, Sean Connery would be like, oh, come on, God,
That was Daryl Hammond. That's what I was going to say. Daryl Hammond from the SNL Jeopardy was my favorite. It's like, I'll check the rapist for 200 Trebek. It's like, that's therapist, Mr. Connery. Shut up, Trebek. Your mother's a whore. Like, those were the best moments. Like, those were the best jokes. So, like, those are some of the best those are moments that we all remember, right? But when we talk to the political stuff, like, that was kind of hit and miss for back in its day. And so, like, they used to talk about, like, Bill Clinton and who would be Phil Hartman, and then it switched over to Daryl Hammond doing Bill Clinton. But Phil Hartman did Ronald Reagan as well, and then people would do Bloomberg and Chris Christie most recently. But Ross Perot, Dana Carvey did him. And then obviously everyone remembers the iconic Will Ferrell and George W. Bush. I mean, the Mr. Bush, can you please sum up your entire campaign into one word? And he would just look at the camera and go, strategery. like that was some of the most iconic stuff of its time for the campaign analysis and making fun of that stuff. Al Gore also was in there. I believe Daryl Hyman paid him as well. But I mean, those were political moments. But when you think about the SNL stuff, like that was fun, like right, the strategery. That's making fun of Bush in a kind of a funny way. Like he's an imbecile, he's a goofball, he's an idiot, but he's kind of like this goofy, lovable idiot. And I think things changed a little bit with that one, because when we looked at like the Ross Perot from Carvey and Carter and some of those other presidents in the past, like they were made fun of, but it was like kind of like, what's going on? I don't know what's happening. And then with Bush Jr. with W. Bush and Will Ferrell, it changed a little bit and became like an insult directly to his intelligence. And so like it was funny, and it's still funny. I mean, it is. But the question I basically have is that, like, are we looking at SNL becoming a little bit meaner? Because we're going to talk about it in a minute. Like, there's a consistent trend towards being a little bit more intense, a little bit more directly ad hominem almost towards their comedy, and so people are taking it as more like a direct attack to the politician. So, like, I guess, do you think it's getting a little bit meaner?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess in all fairness, in the long short of things, in an effort to keep this episode under 2 hours, yes. I'm not. I guess I want to hold my decision on whether I agree or disagree with it for now. And I do want to say that I do see the picking on people, the interpretation of people going a lot closer and a lot more aggressive than it had before. Right? It's definitely not the same SNL that we grew up with. But in all fairness, if you think about it, let's go back to the Celebrity Jeopardy thing. Right?
Yeah.
They're making fun of Alex Trebek. He's getting made fun of.
Yeah,
he is. The difference is it's not a political figure. So is there a realm where it's okay to make fun of a political figure or another figure? Is it different?
Yes.
I guess. Why is it different then? What is different about Alex Trebek and let's just say Bill Clinton?
Well, usually, like the really big characters, like Alex Trebek, he's a video game or a game show host. Like he gets attacked, but in most cases, people are like, "Oh, ha ha ha," and that's the end of it. But the political figure is something that that is in everyday life, regular. And what we saw in the past was that usually the political figure would come on the show and they would be part of the joke. It would be fun part of the joke. So like we saw recently, Kate McKinnon is the one who did Hillary Clinton, and her big thing that she always did was like she would call something like "bitches cray," and that was her thing. She would run. Was the joke, and Hillary, and she did an amazing job. And I don't know if she's done Hillary recently, but like Alec Baldwin has been doing Trump, and he's going to be hosting on February 11th. Since Alec Baldwin has done Trump, which was after Trump hosted during the campaign season, Trump has said that SNL is a terrible show, it's garbage, he hates it, it's trash, because Alec is really, really taking an intense, harsh way of making him look like a complete and total imbecile. And, I mean, it's similar to what they've recently done with adding in the shirtless Putin. And there's been a lot of misogynistic tendencies that have been under fire on him. But, the Russian stereotype is pretty intense. But,
or like, Sarah Palin. I mean, they make fun of Sarah Palin like you wouldn't believe.
It was the same thing. It's like just complete,
and they make her look
total
dumb.
Idiot. And let's face it, she hasn't really done much to like come across as like she hasn't done much to buck that trend. But I mean,
So I get what you're getting at, and I'm gonna say that I do understand certain aspects of it, and I do agree that there's certain type of stereotypes that I have a harder time with personally. And when we look at comedy, you distinguish comedy different from political discourse? Was there other political discourse back in the day that was comedic in the same atmosphere? Is this really something new, or is this just new because they're going after political figures, whereas before it was just famous people?
I think it might be more specific now. I think that's really what we're seeing. Is like it is hyper isolated to that one person. Like, I mean, they really, really get into it, and so like I think it just seems to me like that the people are the butt of the joke, and it's not so much they're part of it anymore. Like when Obama came on, they made fun of him, big ears, and they've done that, and the way he talks and stuff. And with Bush, they made fun of him. He came on, and it was kind of like, haha, you guys are kind of picking at me. With Trump, there is serious tension there. It is. I think that's the end of it being a good time, and now it's become like an actual tension-based like show thing where SNL is making a stand and making a public statement, and it's changed a little bit because like my favorite presidential skit of all time, I have a link into it, so if we include it in here, we'll be able to see it. Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky have a 3-way call with Saddam Hussein and ask him to break the a treaty so that they can get some heat pulled off of them for their I guess indiscretion hearings and stuff. So like, I mean, that stuff. I mean, that's Bill being a bit of a womanizer. But like, I mean, that is some serious stuff. But it's done so tongue in cheek that it was kind of like, haha, laughable. But Alec Baldwin, the way he's been portraying Trump, like, I don't see that as ever being a way that Trump will ever, completely, because he holds grudges, and I don't see that coming back anytime.
All right, so I have an article, and this article starts off. There's a quote by Mary Hirsch, Hirsch, and she says this. She says, "Humor is a rubber sword. It allows you to make a point without drawing blood." Right?
Yeah,
that's fair. Right? Should comedy be exempt? Should we be regulating what we say? Should we figure out where we're going to be? What is open to be made fun of? But for example, let's look at it this way, right? You have a kid that has a mental handicap. He's not harming you. He's not doing anything to you. He's not out there trying to make your life worse. Maybe he votes for Trump, if he can. Maybe. And I'm not going to say he does, but let's just pretend he votes for Trump. We would both agree that, you and I would agree that was a horrible decision on his behalf. But he's not out there punching Nazis. He's not out there, trying to kill you. He's not out there saying, I'm going to regulate your vagina. I can say vagina without censoring, right? Yeah, he's not out there trying to do that. He's not out there doing any of those negative things. What would be the point of utilizing him in some sort of a satirical sketch? To me, that's almost worse than you do have a president out there that doesn't know how to speak, that doesn't know how to address people properly, that doesn't understand, what it's like outside of the fact that he wants to go, I'm popular, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to see what I can get away with. What can I get away with?
And he doesn't go to the tanning booth anymore. He's not orange anymore, man. Have you seen the photos?
No, I haven't paid attention to the photos. I guess I haven't.
I shared one today. He was as pale as Skeletor. It was freaky as hell.
That's weird. But in all fairness, when you look at that and you look at what it does, what does comedy bring to us? And I don't know if we can solve this answer tonight. I don't know if we can ruin the funniness by doing something serious, but you have to honestly look at it and say, where does the funny lie? Where can we stop doing it? And what should be called out? I think political humor has been used for a long time. Shakespeare comes to mind. Shakespeare used things in a different way to create a political point that a lot of other people didn't use at the time.
Most major artists, really, writers and plus, have done that. I mean, and they, like we talked about earlier with Twain and Swift, they did it in a very, very fantastical way so that it separated a little bit from reality. So it wasn't like we were talking about here when it comes to the SNL thing. It's like hyper identity driven. So like, I mean, it's really, really intensely driven. It's funny. I still think it's funny, and I unapologetically say that it is. I love it. I think it's really great. I do think that it's pushing a little bit too hard and a little bit needs to be a little bit more slapstick. But that could just be the old Adam Sandler, David Spade, Chris Farley, motivational speaker guy and French fry lady. I mean, that stuff to me was the SNL comedy of the time. So I mean that could be changing in a little bit. In the end, I mean, we're going to see some changes, and I'd love to see where it goes, and we'll keep an eye on it. Maybe we can do an update in the future. But I definitely want to talk a little bit about some other ends of comedy when it comes to like worldwide.
Well, and that's fair. And I got something that's going to lead right into that, Hannah. We're gonna flip right over into that here in the last few minutes of the episode. So what happened? What happened at the end of the article? It talks about this. It talks about the climate in the United States. It talks about what is good stand-up comedy. What does it do? If it's done in comedy, if it's not used to incite riot, if it's not used as a point to demonize other characteristics, if it's not used as, I mean, if there was this comedy that came out that says we should kill all the Jews, and then Trump goes, look, these people think the same thing. He doesn't understand comedy. That's not the way the comedy is working. And so that's the whole thing. It's their job to make people laugh. Now, there are some things that I find disgusting personally, and I don't entertain some of those, and there's other things I don't. But what if you look at it in the anti-Muslim culture, kind of like we were talking about earlier in the United States, there's now Muslim stand-up comics that are coming out and touring the country. They haven't...
Great documentary I actually watched about it.
And what they're doing is they're trying to transform the American culture, because what they want to do is say, hey, look, you see us as terrorists. I'm not terrorist. I'm funny. And you know who made me funny? Allah. Allah made me funny. Now, what that leads into is the last portion of the show where we're going to play a little clip in a second of a specific thing that I never heard of. And so, Hannah, tell us where the hell did you even see this specific
Of course, thing? I saw it in my main stomping grounds for when it comes to the front page of the internet. I saw this on Reddit, bouncing around in the atheism subreddit. So, like, that subreddit is a great place to find any secular non-belief stuff. I mean, anything that's rising on the internets. And then if it makes it to the front page, like the main front page, aside from the changes they've made with all the algorithms and all that kind of stuff, when it's a much more popular site now. So, like, it's not as good as it used to be, but either way, like, I saw this stuff on there, and it's like the Real Housewives, and I'm like, that sounds weird. What's going on here? So we're gonna kick it off, man. And this is just, get ready, put your helmet on, because this one does not pull any punches.
All right, this is the Real Housewives of ISIS on BBC.
Coming up this season on the Real Housewives of ISIS.
It's only 3 days till the beheading, and I've got no idea what I'm going to wear.
Abdul seduced me online. He had me at free healthcare.
So this is my 6th marriage. I've been widowed 5 times. 6 times.
I'm so glad I've moved over here. It's everything those guys on the chat rooms told me it would be, and it's full of so many wonderful surprises. Didn't have to do this at Birmingham. Bullshit!
Are you ready, girls? Yeah. Hang on, I'm recording it for Instagram. Ta-da! What do you think? Ahmed surprised me with it yesterday. Hashtag OMG, hashtag Jihadi Jane, hashtag Death to the West ISIS emojis.
Oh, babes, I love it. You look gorgeous. She looked massive. You're gonna need a lot of Semtex to kill that one.
Oh, guys. Hey, ladies! What do you think of this?
Awkward. What a complete bitch. She knew I had that jacket. Copies everything. Copy this.
Oh my god, it was so cringe. Hashtag matchy matchy.
It's times like this I wish I'd never moved out here.
Coming up next week.
He won't stop talking about his 40 virgins. Why can't he be happy with me?
Ali bought me a new chain, which is 8 foot long. So I can almost get outside, which is great.
And that is the Real Housewives of ISIS. Now, all right.
I love it.
Let's dissect it a little bit. I found it funny. I would actually watch that.
I would too.
And some of me says, because they're not attacking an actual individual, they're just attacking an idea, a belief system.
That's one of the things that's important. It's vague. It's vague and it's not specific. And so, like, it's kind of leaving that gray area. So, like, people can identify with Islam and, the losses and the hardship and the things that have happened there, but they're not picking at any one specific people, like one specific person or leaders or anything like that. That helps a little bit.
It does. And some of me says, I don't 100% endorse the idea of just making fun of somebody to make fun of them, right? But I do think that ideas should be on the table. I do think ideas should be challenged. I do think ideas should be ridiculed. I do think that we should be able to take away the fear that people have of Islam. So now, I'm not going to say that it's safe or we're making the world safer by laughing at this, but what it does is it's humanizing some of the different tendencies, and it's helping to bring to light some of the different aspects that you're like, I don't know specifically if I would ever be a part of that religion because of this. Is this really saying? And it gets the discussion happening, right?
At least a little bit.
Yes. And I would caution people about certain types of humor. I would caution people that there is a way to make something to the point where it's borderline unacceptable. But again, everybody's got to have their own opinion. And some people think killing babies is funny. I don't. I find it horrendous.
That's what I was going to say. That line changes very, very, very consistently for some people. I have a very dark sense of humor, and I love a really, really a strong set of really dark comedians. And Doug Stanhope is one of my favorites. In one of his bits, he talks about, he says, like, he had an abortion, and he and his wife had an abortion. He doesn't regret it one bit. And he says that at one point in the bit, he says, like, I had an abortion, mostly because I really, really, really wanted to know what it feels like to kill a baby. And, like, that, I mean, he's taking that so far into the extreme that it's insane. It's crazy. It's funny. And to me, that is still funny. And that pushes it for most people as far as liberals would be concerned. But when you talk about, making fun of something like this religion, making fun of, like, another woman featured on the controversial clips claims or remarks, it's only 3 days into the beheading, and I have got no idea what to wear. Like, those are funny moments, okay? And now the one thing that I would love to see, so, like, Islam is obviously getting the dog boot right now. It's getting attacked. It's getting hit. It is the the go-to for Western fundamentalism. So, like, this would cover obviously Christianity and most of the West. It's easy to make fun of Islam, and a lot of people are saying, like, you shouldn't be able to. But I would love to see this flipped on the other boot. I would love to see the Christian. I would love to see the Christ on a stick, poke, make fun of show. Like, that would be funny too to me. It really would. Like, damn, man, that hurts. Stop. Like, that would be funny too. But like that, I would think would get even more of a backlash than this show is getting. So, like, we couldn't see it, but it should be allowed for this to be on an American channel, because in the BBC this is a big deal. They have a huge Muslim community, and it's growing every day. I would love to see if something like this, the Christ and pals poke hour could be something that could make fun of stuff and be on the U.S. channels, but I don't know.
Maybe. And what we would encourage everyone to do, send us an email at cellardoorskeptics.com, tweet at us at cellardoorskeptics, or Facebook us at facebook.cellardoorskeptics. You can give us your opinions. We'd love to know what you think, whether you think this is too inappropriate, or if this is, decent entertainment. Because, I'll be honest, again, it goes back to Norm Macdonald for me, right? When Norm Macdonald did one of his first his own series on Comedy Central, before he kind of started falling off the radar a little bit, he did this one where he was a jihadist, right? He was a terrorist, and he came in, running in, and he's like, yeah, and he negotiated virgins, right? Now, that's pretty sexist. That's a pretty sexist thing.
You negotiate a virgin.
He was negotiating with I don't know what the name of it is. We need Mohammed back to actually have that conversation. But he was negotiating with somebody sitting there with a typewriter, typing up to God and Allah, saying, hey, hold on. This guy wants this many. This guy wants this many. Oh, this is how many you're going to get. And he argued with them. And again, it doesn't sound super funny, but it was hilarious. But again, it pushes that boundary. We got to talk about, where does that boundary happen? Can we have it? I know I wanted to talk about punchy Nazis tonight, and Hannah told me I couldn't. And that's fine. Everybody else has talked about it. I think we had an amazing show tonight, talking about a lot of funny things. And we were going to be back next week with more Cellar Door Skeptics right here on Spreaker, 9 p.m. Eastern. Join us in the chat. Join us online. Join us in iTunes. I don't care where you join us. Join us. Share the word, because all our goal is to have a conversation with everybody who's willing to listen. With that being said, Chris Hannah, I think we're going to retire the show for tonight. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night, and make sure you help prepare for the revolution. Have a good night, everyone.
You've been listening to a presentation of Cellar Door Skeptics. Check us out on Spreaker, cellardoorskeptics.com.